Des, Landlord Defence did a consultation for a landlord in Richmond recently, and this landlord was in a position that I think a lot of landlords unexpectedly came in when the legislation for HMO licensing changed on the 1st of October 2018, whereby all of a sudden his buy-to-let mortgage wasn't fit for purpose for an HMO. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Quite interestingly, he had a buy-to-let. He'd had it for 5 years, been rented out for 5 years, and the people stopped paying the rent. So that's how he first came to me. So they stopped paying the rent, and he said, what's my best eviction process? So we followed the eviction process, and they did leave. They left, but they left the place in a mess. And a 3-storey house on a busy road on its way into Richmond, and the house is a mess, and he was looking at his options. And as he looked at his options and what he could do, he said, I hear these HMO things are the way to go right now. Maybe that's the best thing I can do with the property. So we had somebody go to the house. Essentially, it was the decorator, handyman, maintenance man, which was easier. Take photos, assess, and give a quote to make the house look good and what would be needed for an HMO. So 2 quotes came out, and when we looked at it and said, well, what do you need to do? I questioned him about the mortgage product he had. And it turned out that he had a simple buy-to-let mortgage, which he'd upgraded from his original residential mortgage, because he once lived in this house many moons ago, and it was now a buy-to-let product, but he didn't have an HMO product. So to turn it into an HMO, he would have had to do all the works, apply for the licence, and the mortgage company, his current mortgage company, would have been informed. At that point, they would have asked him to redeem the mortgage and cancel the mortgage, because they wouldn't permit it to be used as an HMO. And for some landlords, as he found out also, looking at his insurance policy, he needed to change that too for multi-letting. So very, very important. It changed the scope of what he was going to do. He decided that going down this route in this property, because he now lives a couple of 100 miles away, wasn't the route he wanted to go. But was quite beneficial because it made him think a little bit about the house, and he redesigned the way the house is put together and has actually made it a really, really nice super house for a family. And so out of some bad things, as you might say, some good things came, and he's got a lovely house that he's renting out now with a compliant mortgage.
That's good. Can I just take you to the generality though?
Yes.
Because, all right, that one was a 3-storey house, so would have needed a mandatory HMO licence anyway.
Yeah.
But there's an awful lot of 2-storey houses that weren't HMOs up until the 1st of October, and then at midnight suddenly became HMOs because of a change in the regulations. A lot of those landlords will probably be on buy-to-let mortgages with companies that don't yet do HMO mortgages. Is that right?
Well, that's very, very interesting what you said there, because the first thing is they were HMOs already. They just didn't need a licence at that stage. A property where 3 persons or 3 people share facilities and are unrelated requires it to follow the Management of House in Multiple Occupation regulations from 2006, of which there were 11 sections. One of those sections, by the way, is about the occupants and what their obligations are. Not many people know about that. But from the landlord's point of view, yes, there are 10 points or 10 sections which he needs to comply with. And some of those things, most of them, are the same things that you would need to comply with if you did require a licence. But many landlords used to believe that that didn't matter, because if you didn't need a licence, you didn't need to do those things. Well, I think I said it was from 2006, so for 12 years you've had to do them, but people have ignored them, and I'll be quite frank with you, so had councils. But now they're enforcing. One, it's good for them to enforce for the safety. We only have to look at the housing that wasn't in the private rented sector, and we have to look at things like Grenfell Towers and see that this is very, very important. Lives are at stake here. So no, you should have, if you turn your house with 3 people sharing into an HMO, either because you plan to or inadvertently because your occupants do, then you need to make sure you've got the right mortgage product and the right insurance. So licensing starts at 5, Additional licensing could start with whatever the council decides. And in some areas, as we're seeing now, a third of the London boroughs have something called selective licensing, which means even as a buy-to-let landlord, you need to register your property for licensing and get a license. Many, many landlords don't know this, and they're going to get caught out. And the fines, they're generally dishing them out at 15,000. Most of them are up to 30, but the fines by law are actually unlimited.
I think some of those landlords had better get in touch with Landlord Defence, Des.
It would be great if they could get in touch with us. The reason being is if you've ever had a parking ticket on a car, that's the way they're treating this. It's becoming very much like, let's slap an enforcement notice the same way as we used to slap a parking ticket. You know, it took nearly a decade or two to sort that out and get the behaviour right. Parking
tickets are painful enough, but a £15,000 parking ticket, I don't want one of those.
No, but the other thing is you don't normally get them saying, well, if you pay in 14 days, we'll reduce it by 50%. They do make an option, but it's still a big chunk out of your money.
Thank you, Des.
Thank you very much. Cheers.